So, how am I going to get him alone? I'm going to kidnap him. I'm going to kidnap the President of the United States.
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the two hosts of this deep podcast.
And I'm Rich and I'm the other host of this deep podcast. Think of me as Butch Cassidy to Dave's Sundance Kid because we're both beautiful men.
We are. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we'll quite often drift off and talk about other things, sometimes movies and sometimes just life in general.
And of course, we do like to drop big fat spoilers by accident. So if that happens and we mention a film you don't want us to ruin, go away, write to your pen pal, write to Pierre, he deserves a reply. Because on today's episode, we are joined by Darryl Edge.
Darryl is a brilliant podcaster. You will know him from such podcasts as Cage Rage, a Nicolas Cage podcast, and the brilliant Getting Defoe You that me and Dave have both been on as guests to talk about Speed 2. Check that one out.
We are very excited to sit down with Darryl and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Darryl Edge's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy.
Can you tell me the first sequel that you got excited about when you were younger?
I've been thinking about this. I feel like the first one I actively remember watching, I was kind of looking into this because I'm a child of the 90s. I think I looked on a Rotten Tomatoes list of like the best sequels of like the 90s or just in general. And there was like nothing from the 90s on there, hardly. I think it started with Terminator 2 and ended with Toy Story 2.
So it starts strong and it ends strong.
The robot to toy pipeline is a straight line, I'm telling you. I feel like it was Toy Story 2 where I feel like it was just time when the sequels just came out, and then I was a kid, I didn't know anything about it. I was like, wait a minute, it's Woody and he's doing something different. What is this?
Yeah.
And there isn't even a Pixar dog with weird eyes in there. So Toy Story 2 is definitely one. I feel like the first one that I got genuinely excited about, though, I guess whether you consider this, I guess, kind of a sequel or not, I definitely got swept up in Phantom Menace fever.
Oh, we can count that as a sequel. Yeah.
We have let this pass. We've let someone pick it for worst sequel or best sequel before, so we can definitely pick it for your first memory. So do you mind asking how old you are to make me and Rich feel a little bit older?
At point of recording, I am 32.
Oh, you're not. I thought you were going to be much younger, so that's fine. We can in your 30s. That's brilliant. So in '99, how old would you have been then? Because I would have been 14, 13, I think.
8 or 9, probably 8.
Oh, you are prime bait for Phantom Menace. Then you must have bought right into it. Were you a fan of Star Wars?
Yeah, I had it sort of growing up. There was a video store which is long since gone. There's been like a hairdresser's and a bank and a Indian restaurant and all sorts in between. But I remember my mum taking me to this video store to pick out like a video RIP VHS, gone but not forgotten. And I picked out Star Wars Episode 5 just because the cover looked really cool. And my mum said, you realise that's not the first one, right?
No, Mum. Oh, no.
And it was that kind of awkward, stubborn kid thing of like, well, now I'm wrong, so I cannot back down. I must double down. So I went straight in on Star Wars Episode 5.
Good.
So much of it did not make sense to me, but I was like, this is brilliant. This is fantastic. I love all of this. So I ended up watching the original trilogy so much, and then Star Wars fever kind of sweeps the nation. And dare I say, no one's more Jar Jar Binks-pilled than this guy.
Okay.
I've got so much time for Jar Jar Binks. And I saw the what was it, the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace recently?
Yeah.
And I went in and I watched it, and I was trying to think, like, cast your mind back, Darryl, like 25 years, and what really was your reaction? And I think at 8 or 9 years old, 32, I feel like my reaction was, it's a bit shit, innit? It's a bit shit.
Yeah.
It's not a movie for 8 or 9 year olds for most of the movie. I mean, it's got bits of it that appeal, but most of it's a boring chat about trade blockades
and tax evasion and stuff like that. I think most of it.
Imperial Senate politics. No 9-year-old sitting there going, but tell me more about the trade wars.
That's what I went for, and it's really shaped my political opinions today, honestly. I think watching it now, being a bit older and a bit wiser, when there's just a lot of those creatures with, shall we say, questionable accents and ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I was trying to think to myself, has this aged well? Has it stayed the same? Or has it just always been quite bad? And I think it gets away with it because the tagline is like every saga has a beginning. And I was like, well, they didn't say it was going to be good.
That's true.
On the poster. They just said it starts here. And I'm like, you know what? Fair play, George Lucas.
It does.
1-0 to you.
It does start there. It might be a somewhat boring start, but it's there.
Yeah.
And we got a pod race, and that's...
And Jewels of Fate
nice.
is fun. It's brilliant at the end, right? When Qui-Gon gets
that makes it
killed and Darth Maul gets chopped in two, and it's exciting. I've, weirdly, for Phantom Menace, for me, I've gone from being 13 coming out and going, denying that any film's bad at that age. I was like, everything's wonderful in my eyes, you know. And then growing up and watching lots of cinema and realizing, and lots of Star Wars, and realizing all Phantom Menace isn't good. And then 25 years later, I've kind of come around to going, do you know what? At least they tried. And it's not the worst one. And, you know, God bless it. It gave us a few things like Jewels of Fate and the pod racing and Ewan McGregor and stuff like that. And so I'm not quite sure if I'm mad or not anymore. But
time heals all wounds. And then you watch it again in the anniversary, like, no, I'm mad again. I'm actually furious.
Yeah, because once it was cool to hate on Jar Jar, right? And now everyone's like, ooh, we should be a little bit nicer to Jar Jar.
I think so. I went through a similar phase, Dave. I was 18 when
you were a man.
I was a man. I was a fully grown man. And
you were voting.
I
made decisions.
Yeah. I slowly burnt all my Star Wars memorabilia in a big fire in the back garden after watching it. But having seen Rise of Skywalker, the Phantom Menace is a fucking masterpiece. So, time heals all wounds, it seems.
It is a wonderful thing. So that first trip to see Phantom Menace, that was the cinema, was it?
Yeah. One of our regular trips. Shout out to the Odeon in Tamworth. Oi, oi.
Oi, oi. Were you dressed up? Did you ever have a lightsaber with you? Did you go full in with the all the toys and stuff?
I wish I was that committed to it. I really wasn't. I think dressing up always made me a bit awkward, though. I remember it like in nursery when all my classmates got dressed up for the nativity, and something about it in my like young 4-year-old mind was like, this is the worst thing that could happen: getting dressed up and having fun, committing to the bit and a role. And I calmed down crying, and then the teacher was like, "Oh, just come and have a look at your friends. Like they're all dressed up as well." I remember seeing like my friend, obviously also 4, just dressed in like a gold vest and red tights because he was the star, and I burst out crying again. And ever since then, I'm like, you know what? People who dress up, more power to you. But I don't think it's for me. So nowadays, maybe I would. Maybe I'd be a more open to a little like Jedi garb or something like that. I guess it depends what film. I never saw the last Star Wars ones, Rise of Skywalker and the other one. Tapped out after Force Awakens.
Oh, really? So you don't like Force Awakens, or was it too good that you didn't want to go back ruining it?
I think it is the popular consensus, like, it's fine, but it's just a New Hope with new people in it, isn't it?
It's like New Hope, but Pimp My Ride. Like, Exhibit's got hold of it and gave it a big subwoofer in the back, but I still loved it. It's all shiny and clean kind of thing. I can't... See... So you're a film fan. You've got two very wildly, brilliantly podcasts where you've centered on certain actors of Nicolas Cage and Willem Defoe. When did the cinema loving, film loving guy pop out of you then? Because it can't have been Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I was watching Phantom Menace and Jar Jar Binks put his tongue into an electric beam, and I thought, you know what, Nicolas Cage is actually all right. He was sort of like in kind of high school when, to a point, I think I was still ironically a fan of Nicolas Cage because, like everyone, I'd seen the internet video Nicolas Cage losing his shit, and I thought, I love it when people scream out of context. There's one thing I love more than anything, it's no context. I love it. And then sort of as the years went by, and I was like, no, do you know what? Behind all of this, I do think I actually really enjoy him. And then for like many a podcaster, lockdown happened, and I was like, well, we need to do something. Mm-hmm. So and then it's grown from there to the point I was like, you know what? Actually, Nicolas Cage is the greatest actor of all time. That's not even a hill to die on. That's just a fact. And if you disagree, you're a coward. And then it's, I think the natural spiritual sequel was to go with Willem Defoe as well, one of Hollywood's other madmen, and just learn a bit more about films and enjoying them, not ironically, and having a heart growing 3 sizes like the Grinch after all this time as well.
It's weird because you've picked Nicolas Cage, who famously for a while did a film every other week, and he seemed to have slowed down a little bit now. I mean, not much. And then you've taken on Willem Defoe, who does a film every week.
Oh yeah.
So I like how you're like, okay, I'm going to set myself a goal of watching all these films, but you know it will never end. You do realise that, right? These is going on forever.
I am very aware, and a peek behind the curtain of my real life. Me and my partner, we'd never been massively interested in having kids or anything, but it's got to the point where I must sire an heir to carry on the podcast because I will be outlived. I've made my peace with that, so some very strange conversations to come in my personal life very shortly.
We can have a child, but only if they're a big fan of overacting.
Of either Nicolas Cage or William Defoe. I keep calling him William, and I've been on your podcast, and you made us watch Speed 2 Cruise Control again, which I still think is one of the finest 90 minutes of podcasting ever produced by a collab team. It was mental, and it was a lot of good fun. I
think the message we got from your editor, which was, this is 90 minutes of 4 blokes laughing at their own jokes, which is the best thing that podcasting can be. I think that sums us up pretty well.
I think you have to make yourself laugh before you make other people laugh and have a good time.
Very high compliment from our editor. It can be a tough cookie to crack, but very, very high compliment.
Has he ever put out, are you sure you want to put this out?
No comment, move on.
What is your best ever sequel?
Best ever sequel for me. And when you very kindly asked me to come on the podcast many, many moons ago, like immediately in my head, I was like, it popped up and I was like, right, I've got to lock that in. And it's like the OG Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi directed Spider-Man 2, which I think is maybe one of the best like superhero sequels, but just in general, one of the best superhero movies. I was absolutely obsessed with this. And then it was also because the tie-in video game that came out when they finally got like web swinging right. And I was like at 13 years old going, the memory of Binks had been long forgotten at this point. And I was like, no, this is fucking pod racing. And everyone, I think from a Willem Defoe perspective, when they think of Defoe, as we've kind of found out in our basically a study at this point, if it's not Platoon, they've seen Spider-Man. And everyone unanimously agrees, Willem Defoe is a very good Green Goblin.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you kind of wonder, like, well, how do you follow the Green Goblin? And then you've got Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, who comes with such like a pathos. And I think with these movies as well, there was certainly an understanding from Sam Raimi of who this character is. And this was like this Wild West time when I think Fox just started buying all the rights to all these popular heroes because Marvel was about to go out of business. And It's just, we'll just take all the big ones. There isn't a connected universe. We'll just keep throwing it out without rhyme or reason. It was a Wild West time, and a very exciting time, because it's like, oh my God, like the X-Men movies are genuinely fun. There was not the first Hulk, but the one with, I think it was Eric Banner, Ed Norton. Eric Banner one was okay.
Ang Lee, yeah.
I remember watching that one and thinking, like, I want to see the Hulk, and he doesn't turn up for about 5 hours.
The Ed Norton one's a bit better, I think.
Imagine going to see that Hulk one at 12 o'clock at night, because that's what I did.
There's a pain in your eyes.
There is a history where I worked at a bowling alley, and above it was a cinema, and they let us go into all, like, when they were testing the reels, like they send us a message and say, we're showing blah blah, come on up, and we gave them free bowling basically. And I saw some really good ones. Spider-Man 2 was one of them. X-Men 2 was one of them. Jackass the movie, I remember like that. And then I've got littered of bad memories of why am I staying up late watching this shit. And that's mainly the Hulk, or Hulk as it was, famously on this podcast, Matrix Reloaded, where I dragged loads of people to see it. And another film called Bulletproof Monk, which is one of the worst films I've ever watched in my life. So...
Nice.
But the Spider-Man 2 was definitely a highlight, and it was quite nice going the next day to like college or school or whatever and going, oh, I might have seen Spider-Man 2 last a week before it's out. Just to let you know, it's pretty good.
I've bowled a strike. I bet you were doing bowling puns all the time.
We did a link up once for the cinema when Triple X came out, and if you bowled a turkey, which is 3 strikes in a row, they gave you free tickets. Took me about 7 games to get a turkey and get the free tickets once, and that wasn't worth it because Triple X is also a turd of a movie. Which I
what commitment to Triple X? That's incredible.
I don't know why. Just because I got the cinemas tickets free at that point, I don't know why.
You just wanted to bowl a turkey, didn't you, mate? Really?
Yeah. And you had to print it out and show it. Anyway, Spider-Man 2.
You just wanted to go, look how good I am at bowling.
I was pretty good, guys. I was pretty good at that time.
You'd walk around going, gobble, gobble, everyone. Gobble, gobble. Like,
I was part of a bowling league.
Did you have the shirts as well?
No,
shirts?
one of our names, this is going off, was I had played with a guy who was quite big, and we were called Fats and Small, because he was quite a big man and I was small. Anyway, Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man. You must have been a big fan of the first film, right, then?
I adored the first Spider-Man, because Spider-Man was like absolutely like my favourite hero growing up, and the halcyon days of like the original like 90s Marvel cartoons. And God bless X-Men 97, because it's cool to have breakfast on a Saturday morning again. And I watched it all the time, action figures, like comic books, and when there was like a live action movie, I was so excited. The only live action I'd have at Spider-Man is like the unfortunately little known, there was a live action TV series in the 70s of Spider-Man, which, say what you like about it, I'm going to go out on a limb, die on a hill, and say that has the greatest TV theme of all time.
Really?
I'm not going to do it because it's just going to be just the ramblings of a madman who's had a bad dream. But Google it, 70s Spider-Man TV series intro theme, whatever the keywords are. It's just like jazz funk fusion. Well, it's just a man obviously crawling on a flat surface going up some like cardboard buildings. It's brilliant. It's so good. And obviously they couldn't have like villains in there. It was just a robber or anything, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And
I've never seen it.
No, I've never seen it.
I didn't know it was a thing.
And I promise you, listeners, I've not had a nightmare. I'm not ill. I promise you, even though I wasn't around in the 70s, I promise you that this exists. I had it like on...
How did he swing around?
Don't worry about it. It was kind of... I guess it was like a companion piece to like the Hulk TV series back in the day.
Yeah, loads of people turned up in that. I remember that.
And everyone was turning up in there. Thor was there for a bit, but...
Yeah.
And then I know they had some like odds and ends live action Marvel films in the interim, which were like whatever. And then Spider-Man came along. Obviously at this point, it's all interconnected and you've got to watch all the TV series to get it. And even myself as like a superhero fan, I'm starting to feel like the burnout, and I'm just like, Deadpool and Wolverine, please save me, give me hope once again. But then there was no blueprint for this, so it's like, okay, well, we can just do whatever we want. And I think he just kind of understood that at its core, Spider-Man he's a street level hero. He's just a guy struggling to pay his bills. He's a normal man. He's not like a god or super machine person, and it understood that. And then it seemed it was like Willem Defoe, and it was like, and then Macy Gray was doing a Thanksgiving parade, and then people got evaporated by pumpkin bombs, and I was like, yes. And then there was Willem Defoe as a Green Goblin pretending to be an old woman in a burning building, and I was like, yes. There are, and they. I remember there was a QVC episode when we were doing like Spider-Man memorabilia, and you could buy like a replica of like a Daily Bugle front cover. I don't know why, but I was like, Mom, I have to have this bit of paper.
Oh, wow. Did you get it?
I did.
Bless your mum.
Bless. For a time I was an only child, and I had dominion of that house.
Brilliant.
So it was just like fantastic. And as remiss as I am to say this, I don't know why Fox bought the right to Ghost Rider. God bless Nicolas Cage, but Ghost Rider was a swing.
Ghost Rider's horrible. Yeah.
It was definitely a swing. I remember Ghost Rider 2 being good at the cinema, but then I remember that me and my friend were just writing down on our phones all the times that Nicolas Cage went a bit mad, and that's why we enjoyed it so much, for the classic line of Nicolas Cage just going to touch a child's face, and then the child saying, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "I thought there was a bee on your face." I was like, yes, this is why we go to the cinema, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. What I like about the Spider-Man is that the technology just about caught up with it when it came out in 2002, right? It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It does look good. Yeah.
I was properly excited when the first one came out. I was like, it's going to be good. It's good, the first one. It's not great in my eyes. Rich, what do you think of the first one? Quickly, you're a Spider-Man boy.
I think the first one's good. I enjoyed the first one. The second one's better because Doc Ock is better, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think Willem Defoe is great. He's a brilliant Green Goblin, but Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, for me, is like the pinnacle Spider-Man baddie. And, well, saying that, we haven't seen the Kraven the Hunter movie yet, so, I'm holding out hope.
Hold, everyone, hold.
It is a bit... Oh, God, let's not even go to that. So then 2004 rolls around, and how old? You must have been 15 by that point?
Around, I'm going to ballpark 14, because I know that was that time when we always got the movies like super late still.
And did you watch the trailers for Spider-Man 2? Like you said, the computer game was coming out, and then...
I think I must have known it was coming, because I remember being excited for it. I was massively excited for the first one, but I was so scared I couldn't see it because it was a 12. And when it came out, I was like 11 and 10 months. And I was like saying to my mum, like, they're not going to let me in. And she went, "I'm your mother. I am going to lie." And she did.
Oh.
God bless you, Dawn.
Yeah. She's the winner here at this podcast so far. She sounds lovely.
She looks out for her own. As our Dawn. And then was massively excited for Spider-Man 2. And I think, again, this is a time, I think there was a lot of it feels like there was less pressure on superhero sequels back then, because now everything's got to have a post-credit sequence, everything's got to have a sequel, and some of the more modern sequels are good. Like, I thought, like, no one had any anticipation for, like, Iron Man when they really started the MCU, but that was really good. Iron Man 2 wasn't as good. My experience with Iron Man 2 is that actually, for context for this, my mother's boyfriend had it on DVD, brought it to the house to watch, and he's a man who's trained in martial arts, and he loves watching fight scenes because he likes to look at the things that he could do. So he fast-forwarded through all of Iron Man 2 to just the action scenes, then fast-forwarded to the credits, said, "That was shit," and left the room. To this day, I'm still livid. I'm like, how do you live like this, you monster? Oh
dear. No.
I shouldn't have. Did you rewatch it after that Iron Man 2? And then you're like, yeah, it was right. It's pretty shit.
So, no, I went to bed. I was like, I'm actually quite mad. I can't be in the same room as you, this beast.
He didn't do that with Spider-Man 2, though. He didn't take you to see Spider-Man 2. Was that 6 years difference, I guess, at that point?
No, so he fortunately was nowhere near my Spider-Man experience. Untainted, a very nice cinema experience. I thought it just elevated from the top. It still continued the drama that Spider-Man is the everyman. He's still struggling with the bills. There's the moral conundrum of living this life and saving people means that my own personal life kind of falls into tatters. Doc Ock is having his own conundrums. And then, like, they're fighting whilst falling down buildings, and they're fighting on top of the train. And all the train stuff, I was like, this is brilliant. We don't talk about Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 2 was like...
Didn't happen. There wasn't a 3, was there? I don't remember that.
No, didn't happen.
It's the only film Rich has ever walked out was Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, it's the only time I've ever walked out of the cinema before the end of the film.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was, I just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it anymore.
You just they're like, look how they massacred my boy. Had to leave. Had to go. I respect it.
Is the train bit the best bit in Spider-Man 2? Or is it when Doc Ock wakes up in the doctor's surgery and Sam Raimi's like, I'm going to go Evil Dead on this movie?
Those are both standout stuff. Like, I think that, again, it was like, he's done quite well with the first one. I think we'll just let him do what he wants with the second one, which I was a bit disappointed with, like Multiverse of Madness, because like you could tell they kind of reined him in a little bit.
That's because there's no Multiverse and Madness in it, Darryl.
No, I needed
it's lacking in
madness.
both.
The madness was they go on red and stop on green. I was like, madness.
Crazy.
I won't hear a bad word said about Bruce Campbell's Pizza Popper, though.
Bruce Campbell is the highlight of every Spider-Man film is. So, first one, he's the wrestling guy, right?
He's the announcer.
The announcer. Second, he's the usher. And third, he's the restaurant waiter.
He is by far the best thing in the third one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Pecker, yes. Do you think he's playing the same character in all three of those films? Because there's rumours for years he was going to be Mysterio.
Oh, that would have been fantastic. If they just, like some hotels don't have a floor 13, they've just gone 2 to 4. Like, what's gone on there?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
And it turned out it was Mysterio. I think that would have been delightful. I like how, like in conventions now, Bruce Campbell just openly takes complete credit for Spider-Man's success. He's like, well, I named him, so if he wasn't for me...
Yeah.
I was like,
Macho Man's in that first one as well, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, God. Bone Sauce! But then it's slightly hampered by the fact that, like, Peter Parker's like, oh, did your husband make that costume for you? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we are still in the early 2000s. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Talk about it. So it's celebrating its 20th year this year in 2024, and I think they're re-releasing it or re-released it. I think they're releasing all the Spider-Man films weirdly again. Are you tempted to go back to cinema and watch it again as grown-up Darryl and...
Already booked my tickets. Don't waste my time with your silly little questions.
Okay. Are you taking your missus? Are you dragging her to see it? Have you forced your love of that film on her?
I mean, it started with Nicolas Cage, and now it's just a sickness that's really polluting us from the inside out.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I booked like 1 and 2, and she's like, why didn't you book number 3? That doesn't make any sense. I was like, you weren't there.
You weren't there, man. You not sat in a darkened room and tried to get past Peter Parker's dancing.
It's a weird trilogy because the first one is a great first film. It really sets it up nicely, especially the Tobey Maguire character and his relationship with Aunt May or MJ and whatever. And it does a good job of like Willem Defoe. As soon as they found out I think with the Goblin, they forgot he has such an incredible face and then tried to give him a massive helmet to cover that incredible face. And that was my problem with the first
Which
film.
looks like his face.
Well,
it looks like a stretched green Willem Dafoe's face.
And like you said, how do they top them like the maddest man at that point? Like, and they go with Doc Ock, who plays it. It's Alfred Molina plays it slightly differently.
Very differently, but brilliantly though.
Oh, he's excellent.
I think he's the best Spider-Man villain in the movies so far.
When you first watched it, and were you expecting Willem Defoe to pop up again right at the end to set up the hot dog storyline?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because you could quite watch them quite standalone as well, because they are self-contained in their own ways. But then obviously James Franco still sort of like milling about as Harry Osborn.
Rewatched it and I completely forgot James Franco was in these movies still. So that was a surprise.
Yeah. He's just like the angry third. It's really funny when they're doing the experiment for like the limitless energy source, basically the recreating the sun. It all goes wrong because of course it does. And then Harry Osborn comes out. He's like, I have nothing except Spider-Man. I was like, that shouldn't be so funny. You've lost everything. But then when they set it up, I'm like, oh, Harry's going to take them out of like the Green Goblin. I was like, oh, this is exciting. And it's basically that, I'm supposed to spoiler for our Defoe podcast, that last 2 minutes of dialogue with Willem Defoe is purely the reason that we will be covering it on the podcast.
Oh, no. Really? You're going to do a whole film just...
Well, for Spider-Man 2, we debated this and we were like, oh, it's technically new dialogue and it sets up the third film, so it's kind of quite important.
He was on set as well. It's not like it was uncut bits from the first film. I think he actually went and filmed bits. So you have to do it, Darryl.
Yeah, we owe it to the people.
Plus, Spider-Man 2 is not a bad film to be talking about compared to some of the other stuff that, Speed 2, for example, that you have to sit through or whatever.
It deserves a higher rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's all I'm saying. 5, maybe 6. I've gone up 1% since we last spoke about it.
Yeah. How do you feel about the other Spider-Man films? The whole, Garfield, Holland.
Andrew Garfield, the first Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man, for me, I was still weighing it against what came 10 years before. And I enjoyed the first Amazing Spider-Man. I thought it was different enough. I think it was kind of that thing where I know actors are usually a lot older and they play a lot younger, and you kind of think, well, you're all definitely about 10 years older than you're supposed to be, but we're going to look past that. And I thought it was all right. I didn't mind the lizards in it. The second one, I didn't care as much for. I think they really sort of missed the trick. I still don't care about Electro, to be honest. The Tom Holland ones, I've really enjoyed. I've genuinely enjoyed them. I thought that they've brought like a fun back to it, which I felt was missing from a lot of Marvel at the time as well. And then obviously it gets to all the multiverse stuff and they're all coming back and I'm there just like popcorn in my teeth, crying into my Pepsi, going, yes.
And that brought the Tobey Maguire back. And now they keep lobbying for a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, directed by Sam Raimi. Would you be up for that? An old man or oldish man?
Oh, you keep wasting my time with your silly little questions.
Yes,
of course
you would.
I would, Dave. Of course I would. I'd be there in a heartbeat. I'll be the first in line. I think I've only ever done one midnight screening, which I think was for like the second Star Trek Chris Pine one?
Into the Darkness, what it was called.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a good choice.
No, I was supposed to. He was in university, and I was meant to go on like a date to see like the Evil Dead remake. I think it was that kind of fell through. My mates were like, "We're going to see Star Trek," and I was like, "Yeah, I could probably do with that." So, given the circumstances, it was fine.
Oh wow,
it was fine.
Last question about Spider-Man 2. Then we go on there.
Yes,
you say it's your best sequel ever, and it is. Is there any other superhero films that come close to it, like sequel-wise? Like, especially that early period when we had the X-Men 2 was good. I think that was 2004 as well, wasn't it? The same year?
I think so.
Roundabout, that's pretty good. And the other one I can think is Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I mean, compared to Spider-Man 2, compared to those two, is pretty good. I'm going to be nice to the other two there.
Does anything else come? Because I mean, for me, that's like a top tier, upper echelon superhero movie. There are many pretenders to the throne. I think that's always going to be a personal favourite for me. That others don't really come close. Although what I guess what I will say is like in recent, I hate this word, discourse, because film Twitter is a thing. Everyone collectively started deciding. And this is a small hill of mine that I'll die on. I am one of the few people who actually thought Thor: Love and Thunder was great. I really enjoyed it.
Oh.
It is, and I'll say this, I understand why people didn't like it. I know what direction they're taking the character in. I think Thor Ragnarok built up a lot of goodwill for Thor because he'd been quite dull
Yes.
Definitely.
Definitely.
And whatever your opinions are about Taika Waititi aside, the Ragnarok Love and Thunder it's so stupid in its humour, and that is completely up my alley, completely out there absurdist humour. I love that kind of stuff. So for me, I was cackling in the cinema and I was like, this is great. Yes, I understand that CGI boy's face is terrifying. The less said about that, the better.
Oh, it's bad, that bit. Yeah.
That's horrible.
It's genuinely nightmare fuel. But it's like, you know what? Will time be kind to this? And even like Chris, what's his face? His name's gone. Hemsworth. I know he's come out recently and he's like, yeah, it wasn't great, was it? But you know what? I'm sympathetic to it. It's completely dumb. That's my jam. So,
well, there goes the hot take question that I was going to save until much later.
We'll edit around that. Actually.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Darryl, what is the most disappointing sequel you've seen? So it doesn't have to be a worse sequel or a bad sequel or your worst sequel. It's the most disappointing sequel. So you went in high and you came out low.
Disappointing sequel.
I mean, Ghost Rider 2 could be in there for you.
Do you know what?
It is.
I think it might be. And what made it worse, like when I covered it on the Cage Rage podcast, because I brought my friend on to talk about it because we'd seen it at the cinema together. And it was like Nicolas Cage's last big cinematic release for like we're all aware, a long time following that. And the first Ghost Rider was like, it's okay. It's not quite as the standard as the ones that have preceded it, with all the Fox just throwing any old shit at the wall. Rise of the Silver Surfer, take it or leave it. But we saw it in the cinema, and again, apologies, Nicolas Cage, we watched that film for completely the wrong reasons, because we were silly and we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And then I messaged him and I was like, I think, just for like a nice sort of full circle, I think it'd be nice to come on and talk about the film. Because I remember distinctly that we both had a really good time watching it. And then we watched it again separately and talking about it in the podcast. We're like, isn't time a funny thing?
Yeah.
Isn't it great how memory works and how it lies to us? And I watched it. Sometimes you watch a film with like folded arms and you're like, no, this isn't right. This is wrong.
Yeah.
I can't believe I've done this to myself. This is a joke I've played on myself like 11 years in the making. What have I done? And there's like Idris Elba's in it.
Yeah.
And he's like upside down in a tree for a bit.
What is it called? Spirit of Vengeance? Something like that?
Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance it was. And I think it was it directed by like one of the guys who did Crank?
One of the guys that did Crank. Yeah.
So I think they tried to bring that sort of Nicolas Cage energy to it, just with like these just like heavy rocking beats of like Death Row of 1979 when he's transforming into Ghost Rider. And I was like, okay, well, they're really leaning into the madness of, I guess, being a demon, which, I guess I probably wouldn't take it that well myself. I think it was only saved by the fact that Nicolas Cage got to be a bit mad. And when, as I sort of mentioned earlier, he's got another line when the Ghost Rider's coming. He's like, he's scratching at the door. And then whenever my uni mate, the same guy in the podcast, tried to like wake me up because I just would not wake up for lectures, he was like, Darryl, he's scratching on the door. I was like, yeah, I do like Nicolas Cage quotes to get me out of bed. Thank you.
I've never seen it.
Have you not?
No. I saw the first one in the cinema. I remember hating it. Like almost every second of it, and yeah, not watching the second one. So,
it was released under like they like throw a brick through the window and they wanted you to look over there, and then they kind of released Ghost Rider 2 over here. That's what it felt like to me. So it's like, oh, I can't wait to see Ghost Rider 2. And they're like, it's already been out. Ha 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 ha. And then you kind of had to go and find it. And Ghost Rider is a weird thing, is because I like Nicolas Cage. I think Brock, Con Air, Face Off, brilliant stuff. Love all that. I think he's definitely miscast in this character. Do you agree with that?
I have to professionally put my neck on the line and say, no, your place. How dare you? I think like a lot of us, we talked earlier about Multiverse of Madness not being mad at all. And there was just like complete lies of rumours said like, oh, Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider might be back.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it just didn't happen. And then they soft rebooted the following Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, because that was supposed to get a TV series, but I was like, don't give a shit.
Didn't happen.
Do not care about this. I think Ryan Gosling has been throwing his hat in the ring now. So I feel that we are overdue for something Ghost Rider-esque. And if they have Nicolas Cage just pass the mantle, or even just a nod to camera like, those movies happened, right? I'll take it. I'll take it with a good grace and sit down.
I remember my overriding memory of watching Ghost Rider in the cinema was there's a scene where he's riding his motorbike, not as Ghost Rider, but as Nicolas Cage riding his motorbike, and it's clearly not him because the body moves, and then about half a second later, his face moves. It's almost like it's just wrong. It just doesn't work. And
haunting.
I think that's the only thing I can remember from that movie.
I think that's most of the movie. Which one's Sam Wilson in? He's in the...
Sam Elliott, you mean?
Sam Elliott. Who's Sam?
He's in the first one.
He's the Falcon from the...
Yeah.
He's in the first one.
Sam Elliott's in the first one.
There's a really cool image when there's Ghost Riders lit up, and then there's Sam Elliott is a cowboy one, right? And that's lit up, and that's cool. Is that the first one?
Yeah, they're sort of, he's passing the torch, then riding into the desert. There's like a flaming horse, and like...
That's cool.
That's pretty cool, I guess.
What's the second one about then?
I think it's like the son of the devil has sort of appeared on Earth, and then stuff happens and Cage becomes a surrogate father, sort of.
This sounds mad. What?
To the devil. There's a bit where he imagines himself as Ghost Rider just pissing out a stream of fire. Like I say, as much as I enjoy things being out of context, trying to describe this out of context, it does sound like I'm having Vietnam flashbacks.
So who's Idris Elba playing? Is he playing a bad guy, or is he just in it?
I think he's just turned up as himself. Just wandered onto set and like, do you want to get in a tree for a bit? Like, yeah, it sounds all right.
I love that your disappointing sequel is a film just because it's got Nicolas Cage in it. It's going to have to be good. And then the previous memory was that it was okay. And then... Then it wasn't.
It's disappointing because I did this to myself. Like for 10 plus years, I clung on to the memory. I was like, I had a really good time with this film. But what I enjoyed was me and my friend being idiots and making ourselves laugh.
That's cute.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need, though.
Yeah.
Just the memories the film brings back, not the actual film itself.
Yeah. I can't remember neither of these films, but for some reason my head's saying, Dave, you enjoyed the second one more than the first one.
No, Dave.
You haven't watched it, Rich.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but it could be.
I remember a lot of it happening in the daytime in the second one, more than the first one's all at night, and then a lot of the stuff that happens in the second one is in the day. Weird memories. When was the second one out? It was the late 2000s, 2007 or 8. Couldn't be. No.
The second one.
University at the time was 2012.
2011, yeah.
2011.
That's definitely what I said. No, I was at uni at the time. Yes, 2011. That was a whole day out me and my friend had. A whole day.
So you were obsessed with Nicolas Cage even since back then?
Yeah. I just grown to enjoy him more and more. And I remember there was a mate of mine who was in the year above, and we'd had like a very silly falling out. And as an apology, while he should have been doing his third year dissertation, very critical year, he went through the entirety of the Nicolas Cage Wicker Man, edited out all of the scenes in which Nicolas Cage was not included, so it was just the Nicolas Cage cut of the Wicker Man.
Wow.
And he was like, I'm really sorry, just watch this. And I was like, you can never hurt me again. This is beautiful.
The bees! Not the bees!
It's a masterpiece, The Wicker Man, and I won't hear anything different.
I mean, it's certainly something. As a remake go, at least it was something I've seen and never forget again.
Considering they said like 70% of the dialogue was exactly the same as the original, and they still ended up with that.
Yeah,
now, that is genius.
Well, the first one is also mad.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah.
So
to be fair, anytime I see anything now that I'm like slightly confused by, I will just go to myself, "Oh God! Oh Jesus Christ!" I like quoting things. That's my bag.
Yeah. It is weird when they just remake films. Because remember the Psycho remake with Vince Vaughn, which is just literally a shot-for-shot film. No.
Yeah.
And that is awful as well.
I was aware there was a Psycho remake. I didn't know it had Vince Vaughn in it.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn plays Norman Bates.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's shot for shot, but there's like it's in color or whatever, and they added maybe a bit more boob.
I can't imagine Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates.
He's very tall.
That's so weird.
We live in a society, that's for sure.
What is your worst ever sequel? Strap in.
So when you asked me to come on this podcast, and you asked me three questions, and one we've already answered, and you asked what's the worst, I didn't need long to think about this.
You didn't,
because we're in your 6th season, if I'm not mistaken, and
yes.
With no disrespect to previous guests, I understand my Defoe co-host Petros has been a previous guest on this as well. They're all cowards. All of your previous guests are cowards. I am the bravest man who's ever been on an Unequal sequel, because the worst sequel, with no hesitation in my mind, is Dune 2. Or Part 2.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Before we get into this, I should say that in this season, it has been someone's best sequel.
I want names. I want to... Just...
He's a much bigger man than you, Darryl.
But I'm braver and my heart's bigger.
All right, because normally when we watch, someone picks a bad sequel, me and Rich can watch it back and go, "Oh my God, that is shit. I can see why it's bad." And me and Rich both watched Dune 2 Part 2 this year, and we think it's good. I don't think we are in the camp that think it's like amazing, but we think it's good, and technically, like, wow, it's got like the dream teams in it, like the director, the DOP, Hans Zimmer, the actors are all good. So I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about this. I can only think like you're a big fan of the David Lynch one, or you're a massive fan of the book, or something like that. Is there cartoons? Were there Dune cartoons when you were kids? Was there a 70s show you loved? Who hurt you, Darryl?
We don't have time for that question.
Okay.
So here's the thing, right? When Dune Part 1 came out, and everyone was saying, like, this is going to be the next big sci-fi franchise. It's the new Star Wars. Everyone has to go to the cinema to see this. And like many people with a cinema membership, no advertisements here, not for free. Oh yeah. I went along with my other half. I'm like, everyone is saying this is really good. I think this is one we've got to get on board with. And I was watching the first one, and about an hour and a half in, my girlfriend leaned over to me and she went, "I can't believe the lead character's name's Paul." And then she just leant back, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, boo to all of this. If I was Anakin Skywalker, I'd be furious at Dune and all that fucking sand, because I just remember like watching the first one, and I was like, it looks great. Don't get me wrong, visually up there with as impressive as any film as you're gonna see. And maybe I was born in the wrong era. Maybe I'm a bit old beyond my years.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just the cinema room we were in at the time. But when I was watching this, one of my most dominating thoughts was, this is too loud.
Welcome to your 30s.
It's just, shot of sand. So, okay. More sand. Sorry, headphone users. And then a man called Duncan Idaho turns up.
Paul and Duncan, yeah.
Old Paul and Duncan, the bloody losers that they are. And then Oscar Isaac's in it for a bit, and then he just gets naked and dies. And then it's got one of the Daddy Skarsgård. He's just an oily slug man who just floats for a bit. And I was like, oh, God, the prophecy, you're a bit of a sad boy, aren't you? You've got to do some stuff. And I maintain, and friends of mine who have read the book and are very defensive of it say that I'm actually insane. But I know there was a sexual subtext between Paul and his mother. I saw the way they looked at each other in the desert, and I was like, I know what I fucking seen here. You bloody desert naughty noughts. And then all of Doom 1 happened, and everyone was raving about it. And I was like, okay, but what actually happened, though? What actually happened other than sand, and then things exploded for a bit, and then we're at the end, because it was like 2 hours of like, oh, here's a second of Zendaya looking at the camera. I was like, okay. And then Zendaya's at the end, it was like, Zendaya's going to be in part 2. I was like, this is dog shit. Like, nothing happened. It's boring. I don't like looking at sand for like 2.5 hours. If you like sand, and maybe it's because I'm a very pale ginger man and heat makes me uncomfortable, and that's why I just don't agree with it. And the film finished, I was like, you know what? Tried it, wasn't for me. I made a vow to myself on that day. It's like, I'm out. I'm not interested in like part 2.
Oh.
And then part 2 comes out, and then I think was it like part 1 at Cannes or something? It got a standing ovation, and like they'll stand for anything at Cannes. They've got no spine. They'd stand for a fucking dog turd on the stage and applaud that for 5 minutes. And I was like, I'm not interested. Don't really care for it. And then, because I'm weak, everyone kept reviewing it with like, this is actually great. This is actually the best sequel of all time. This is like amazing. Oh my God, like you have to go and see Dune 2. This is what cinema is all about. And those people have never seen Spider-Man 2, because if they had, they wouldn't say things like that. And I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, I'll bite. I'll go see Dune Part 2. And what happened? It was just, more sand. It's just like Paul and his mom just having a conversation with a fucking fetus for 2 hours. Like, and tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, you're not.
They have a conversation with a fetus.
There is some other stuff, but there is a lot of them walking in the sand. I mean, they get to ride on worms in the sand.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do agree with you about the weird chemistry between Paul and his mum. Like, I think I can see where you're coming from with that bit.
Yeah.
And I've read the books. Well, I've read the book.
Yeah.
I've read the Dune
Is that not
book.
in the book?
No. But then the fetus isn't a fetus in the book. The baby gets born.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not so much talking to a fetus as talking to a toddler that's like fully grown adult. It's the book is very hard to read. I'm not going to lie.
Were you annoyed in part 1 when it came up, Dune part 1? Did you think it was going to be one film and you thought, oh, fuck? Like we did.
Yeah, because it's like, and I'll say no disrespect to anyone that has, because not everyone can enjoy every single thing. That's just not the way that life
It's the beauty of cinema,
operates. It's the beauty of cinema. I've never walked out of a film before. Dune 2, I was close.
Really?
So I was like, nothing is happening. My leg was shaking, and I was like, they're just sipping on blue moon juice. They're talking to an unborn fetus that just happened to be Anna Taylor-Joy. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then every 5 seconds, someone's shouting, "Listen, Al Gaib! Listen, Al Gaib!" And then there's that guy who's like the leader of the straw nose people. And
Fremen, yeah.
What fucking Bremen? I respect it so little, I will not learn any of their names, right? And you'll just guess what I'm talking about based on poor descriptions. And all he does, his whole thing in the film is he just bigs up Paul. Like, have you seen that meme of that guy going, "That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!" That's his character. That's all he does. And then they sort of like body pop in the sand for a bit, and there's like
Body pop.
They're just body popping in the sand and they're just riding on fucking worms. I feel sorry for the worms. I was like, who's making all that fucking like thum, 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 fucking desert dune tunes up there? The worms are going to be fucking livid. And then, like, Baldy McGee, what's his deal? Like, oh, we filmed it in infrared. Who gives a shit?
Oh, that's a good bit.
I like that bit.
Who cares? I used a black and white filter on a photo once. I don't go on about it. And then Baldy McGee, I mean, there's two Baldy McGees, actually. There's Batista and there's Elvis. Batista, what did he do in the first one? Not much. This one, he's treated like an absolute chump.
Agreed.
And then Elvis comes along, sounding like Scooby-Doo. What do we do? Make your life chip and shatter. Like, this is, like, everyone in this film, you're all pathetic. Grow up. Have a meeting. Stop killing each other. Christopher Walken turns up. I am the king of the desert. Wow. Fuck. All of you fuck off.
How did you feel when they left it so openly wide for a third film at the end?
My girlfriend, we walked back to the car in silence, right? And then she's like, well, we've got to see the third one. I was like, no, don't know. I promised I was out with the second one. I promised myself I was out. I will never betray myself again. So this is my binding vow, listeners. If you catch me dropping a letterbox review for Dune or Messiah, whatever it's called, cancel me. You must end me.
What happens if it has Willem Defoe in it?
Don't you dare. Right, yeah. You know what? If it's Nicolas Cage, if it's Willem Defoe playing Sandworm, you know what? I take it all back. Dune's brilliant.
You did say that you are weak, so I would put money that you are going to go watch it again. And like, if like my wife's like, I have to go to the cinema or whatever, I'll get dragged along. I haven't got really an argument or a say in it. I mean, I've watched Sing 2 and stuff like that, so.
Well, we have to for the pod, Dave.
Oh, yeah, fair point. Fair point. I'm so easily persuaded every time something I'm going to disagree with, and I listen to your arguments there. I'm like, yeah, you're right, Darryl. Yeah, you're right. I also, like you, I think Dune Part 1 is a lot better when they're not in the sand. The whole beginning bit is better. And I was worried about the second film being all sand, pretty much. But it is quite good.
I think the major the thing is though with Dune 2, it's very long. It looks beautiful. It's beautifully shot, but you can't get past the fact that the story is really fucking old, and we've seen it told so many times. Like if you've seen Star Wars, you don't really need to watch Dune, because I know Dune was first, but you know Star Wars made a better movie first. You know that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I totally understand it. The story is old. It's maybe not the best. I picked up on the weird sexual subjects between like Paul and his mum. You know, I think that's there.
Vindicated. Yes, everyone looked at me like I was insane.
Did you find yourself looking around the cinema, just seeing however other people were reacting to it while you were watching it? That second one more.
Yeah, if I had more of a backbone, I would have stood up and been like, all of you take a good long hard look at yourselves.
Yeah.
As he says, also in the cinema watching the same film.
Yeah. Like this, quite good. Do you listen to critics much then? Because obviously Dune 2 got quite heavily praised a lot. And like you said, that's maybe why you got persuaded to go and see it. How do you listen to critics? Is there a certain critic that you listen to?
Jiminy is one of my favourite cricket critics out there.
I've got to leave it in now.
I mean, not particularly. I suppose when you kind of down the rabbit hole of film, should we say, very broadly.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that you can't really escape when they have like the marketing machine behind it as well. And saw the trailer for it countless times. I mean, that was kind of the main reason that I ended up seeing like No Time to Die, the last Bond film, because it was the only trailer they played during lockdown. I was like, at this point, I have to see it. I have to know. And I actually really enjoyed No Time to Die.
Oh, good.
But I mean, I don't have like favourite critics or anything. I'm always interested to see what people say, like critics versus the people, and then I can either sort of back myself as like I was actually right the whole time, or no, I am still right, but you're all wrong. To quote Seymour Skinner, no, it's the children who are wrong. That's how I feel more as I proceed into my 30s more. But also, I'm weak, and I know I will end up seeing Dune 3 and hating myself for it. Mark my cowardly words.
Brilliant. We'll leave it on that one then. Mark my cowardly words. I've got another question for you, one of the quick questions for you, which you just set up really. What sequel seemed like a bad idea, but you ended up liking? You just mentioned No Time to Die there. Were you going in iffy about that, and you're like, Bond's done?
I think it was more than anything. It was just obviously that weird time during lockdown where, understandably, the studios would not release movies because they know it would be just a death for that film. So they're just releasing like a lot of like older things, which was kind of nice.
It was cool, yeah, I liked it.
It's like Terminator and Back to the Future in like a cinema. That was like really nice, really cool. But for the longest time, the only two trailers for new movies that they would show were No Time to Die and Morbius. Now, I still do not believe that Morbius exists. I have not seen Morbius.
Don't.
At this stage, I think it's too late in the game to get on the Morbius hype train. But I'd never really had anything against the James Bond films because I think growing up, it was always on one of the channels. There was always a Sean Connery or Roger Moore on. Probably seen them all numerous times because they're just on. But then this one had just been like promoted so heavily that it's like I could almost recite the trailer word for word. And then when traders do that noise where there's a slow motion thing and he goes womp, 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 womp. I knew when the womp womps were coming. I don't know what that effect in trailers are called, but I was like, I was just eating my cinema going, has ever and I just thought like it's been pushed back so many times now that it can't be good. But then I watched it and I'll say I hold my hands up. I was completely engrossed in like the whole thing.
Oh, good.
Like, I really, really enjoyed it. It's like, I don't know what they're going to do moving forward, if Bond will survive or they'll just probably just recast. But I feel like James Bond and the 007 fare, you know what you're getting, and sometimes that's fine. Sometimes it's nice to have that safety net, like villain, good guy, Taylor's all this time, you're in a safe pair of hands.
Yeah.
There'll be a fast car that goes vroom, boom, bang, bang, bang. He will make love to a woman. It's like, oh, James, like he is the prototype lad.
The roll eye was brilliant there, by the way. What makes me laugh about No Time to Die is like they kept pushing it back, and they were like, "Oh, just release it." And then when you finally watched it, it was about like a virus, and then like that could kill people. I'm like, I can see why they didn't want to release this. In the middle of a pandemic. Really, I think it's best they gave that a bit of air. Really, I really liked No Time to Die as well. I watched all the Bonds leading up to it. Me and my wife watched one every Monday, and there's more bad Bonds than there are good Bonds, and I stand by that. And me and Rich have both done our best, worst, and dream Bond films.
We have,
And Rich's like best film, dream Bond film, is a Bond film without Bond, so that's good.
Oh,
my dream Bond film is a prequel to
Skyfall.
So it's
interesting.
It's how Silver gets his face melted off, and you know what that relationship with M is like. But I don't really like Bond. I mean, it's just not for me.
Is there any other sequels you thought was a bad idea but you ended up liking?
You know what? Every time they do a Saw sequel, but I'm
really
because like the first one had such a chokehold on people because of like the twist. Oh my god, like the twist! No one saw the twist coming. And the first time you watch it, like it will just like blow you away. Like fuck, like what?
You're not if you're this guy, but keep going.
And then like, obviously they have a formula of like the traps happen, and then there's twists, and then there's twists, and there's twists, and then it's dun-dun-dun, 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 and then someone says game over, and you're like, I should have saw that coming, and then you roll your eyes and put yourself in a trap because you're a horrible human being.
Yeah.
And then they do another one, and they're on like Saw 28 by this point.
We're on Saw 11 now. The one that's coming out next year now is Saw 11.
But you know what? I saw Saw 10. It's like, well, this one's set between like 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 and something. And you're like, well, they're just running out of ideas to try and keep John Kramer in the mix now because he is the franchise. But in this one, they kind of change it up, made him into like the anti-hero kind of thing. And then, like, you know, there's nothing more sympathetic to an absolute monster of a human than giving him cancer and making him good for about 2 hours. Like,
yeah.
And let's also set it in Mexico. Did someone say yellow filter? And I think I kind of like enjoy this kind of film anyway, because anytime there was like a trap or someone was getting maimed, this is a horrible realization to have about yourself. My partner turned to me and said, every time someone was getting a limb cut off, you couldn't have been smiling more. A horrible thing to learn about yourself. To know that the FBI is slowly building up a case.
The Saw films are, well, I was about to say special, but like you said, the first one is a great film, and the twist is great, Rich, at the end. Right?
Is it though?
Yes, it is. That
Okay.
When he first sat up the first time, it blew my mind.
Did you not sit there going, why is that body
No,
there?
I wasn't-
Because that's what I did.
I was
the
20
whole
and
movie
an
going,
idiot.
why is that body there? That's not a dead
It's
body.
all
There's
part
something
of the
going to happen
puzzle.
with that.
I was 20 and an idiot, and then you watched it when you're like 42 and a grown man, and you understand taxes and VAT, and you know you can reverse park and everything.
You're boring. Boo.
Yeah, this is true.
And then I think Saw 2, someone's picked it. I think, Ethan Ryan's picked it as the best ever sequel, and the pit of needles is
That is,
horrifying.
that is horrible. Yeah.
And then the third one gets bad, and I think maybe he dies, like you're right, in the fourth one. And then I'm not quite sure how we got to 10 after that, because I stopped watching.
He has about 5 different apprentices at any given time who are carrying it on, and then they set up that there's drama between them, although they never really explore it. They never really explore the really interesting things, because they're like, yeah, but there's a little trap over here. Come over here, have a look at the trap. Don't worry about the plot. Don't worry about the world building. And ignore the Chris Rock one. That one was, it was there. It's there.
Rich, we're not very good with horror films.
No. So Saw films, I've seen 1, 2, and 10.
To be fair, probably the best 3.
Now they're back. We reviewed it last year, and then there was meant to be one this year, and we're like, I don't know if we can go again this year, but luckily they've pushed it back a year, and we're like, oh, thank God. Thank God for that. We'd have to see someone's ankles being torn off or whatever it's going to happen. Are you looking forward to the next one? Do you think it's going to go be bad and you're going to end up enjoying it again?
I go in with minimal expectations, because I'd like, by the point of like Saw 2, you know what the vibe is. You know how Saw saws, basically. There's traps, there'll be a twist, it will lead to a sequel. Like, that's what you kind of come and play for. I think it depends how they weave it into the narrative that they've set up so far. But I don't go there expecting to be like blown away by revelations of story. Just more like, in another life, yes, I was Jeffrey Dahmer, and I'm completely here for the traps. And see, he said with a homicidally calm voice on a recorded, published podcast, I'm here for the maimings because I'm a sick little boy.
I love that. You're so good at putting where I can put cuts and go on to the next bit. I'm a sick little boy. On to the next question. Darryl, what is your dream sequel?
Dream sequel, again, when you ask the questions, the one that popped into my head straight away, and keeping on with almost predictably a Nicolas Cage tangent to some of my answers today, National Treasure 3. I think it has to be National Treasure 3.
Yes.
Dave has been waiting for this for a long time.
I feel like you've just been putting a lot of like goodwill. You've been really wishing positive vibes for this to happen, and then silly Goose McGee comes along over here.
No, not silly Goose McGee. You're a very sensible person.
And I'm going to put that on my CV.
Yes.
Take that, Mom. National Treasure is one of the movies of Nicolas Cage that even when I speak to people who are like, I'm not a fan of Nicolas Cage, but I do like National Treasure. I think it's such like a soft spot for a lot of people. It's just easy watching. It's just a nice adventure, like country sprawling, world sprawling adventure. The second one didn't quite live up to the first one because how, it's almost ridiculous. It's like, how do you top stealing the Declaration of Independence? You steal the president. So one of the big things a third one would have to do, and people have asked for it for like, what has it been? Well over 15 years now. Every other year something comes out to say, oh, it's starting up again, and then it goes away. I think the last rumour was that Keanu Reeves and Nicolas Cage were going to be in National Treasure 3, which would be incredible, but it's not going to happen. Nick Cage at this point, I think he's absolutely sick and tired of being asked about it.
I think he is, yeah.
He said, I think he was on the interview trail for Arcadian, and then someone asked him, and he's like, at this point, I don't think it's happening. Like, there's no magic. You won't ask Disney about all of this. Like, the magic's gone. And he just did a really sly shit on Disney, saying like, it's their fault. I'd be up for it. But then you also think like Nick Cage, he's in his 60s now. How much? Not that he couldn't. I mean, they won't stop bringing Indiana Jones back. Let the man rest. Yes. Kill him. Kill Indiana Jones. He's done. So I fear it'd be like, oh, I'd like you too old. It's a bit uncomfortable. You'd have to top the Declaration of Independence. They tried to reboot it with the Disney Plus TV series focusing on a younger cast, and they did have like the character of like Riley back.
They did,
I think they wanted to build to getting Nicolas Cage back. Nicolas Cage kind of denied all knowledge about being associated with it or being asked to do it. The makers said he was asked. He said he was never asked. But I think everyone, and even though the TV series, I watched a few episodes, and I will say, I think it could have deserved a second season, if I'm being really fair. It was written by the same people as the first two, the Wibblies, which is the best TV duo and film duo of writers out there. Like, that's what a sweet name. They also wrote Bad Boys, which is insane.
Wow.
The Wibblies are behind National Treasure and Bad Boys. They had one of the most unprecedented runs of summer films in the 2000s.
They also did Charlie's Angels Full Throttle.
Oh. It was going so well.
The Wibblies have left a legacy, I'll say that much. God bless them.
I was checking the Rotten Tomato scores of National Treasure 1 and 2, and I'm shocked. Have you looked at them?
I have a horrible feeling. If it's anything like the way of like Con Air, where Con Air is considered rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, the first one is critics. This is critics, 46%, which is madness. And the second one is 36%, which is madness, fucking madness, because they are should be around the 98% mark for sequels and for films, because they are so much fun.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, everyone commits to everything in all of them, and they know that, like, I'm going to steal the independence is mad, and somehow the whole Sean Bean is a bad guy as well, and the first one's great. It just works. And I know you were a little bit down on the second one, but still, you go to Buckingham Palace, Nicolas Cage does his British accent, they end up in Paris, there's some amazing car chases, there's just so much in those films, like, and Cage is so good in it. And the fact that I still think these films came out like 2 years ago, and the last one was in 2007, and they set it up with chapter, 47, whatever it is, page 47 in the Book of Secrets. It's a crime that we've never had a third one. And I was reading about it. Every couple of years, someone comes out and says, Jerry Bruckheimer seems to come out and go, yep, the script's nearly ready. We're nearly ready. And then it's never been ready. Have you got an idea in your head where it would go? Obviously, Cage would be back. Kruger would be back. Riley, whatever his name is, Jonathan Banther would be back.
Yeah, you'd have to bring the old gang back together. And I think in like an ideal world, if they'd been able to let the story play out, there's no way they wouldn't have brought Cage back for the TV series, be it season 2 or 3. Because like I said, that had the vibe of the TV series and it carried that like energy quite well.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can be really offended. It's like, this isn't what we want. And everyone wanted Nicolas Cage back because he is national treasure. And I think it would have built to something about legacies and it's all like Templars and all this business as well. But I was thinking about this earlier. It's like, how do you top the Declaration of Independence? And in the second one, obviously, they had to steal the president. And it's how do you top stealing the president? And I think the only thing, Nicolas Cage would have to campaign to be the president and steal the hearts of America. That's the only way it would make sense. He would have to go on the campaign trail because that's where all the treasure just happened to be. He was like, make America treasure again. I don't fucking know. Donald Trump would be a transformer or something. There'd be some horrible Disney caricature of like a Trump kind of like character. And then Nicolas Cage would solve all of the world's problems. He would end world hunger. He'd end poverty. It's like, oh, how do you do it? I found some gold. And like, that's all it takes. He finds a bit of gold. Everyone's happy. The legacy continues. It's either that or some kind of Despicable Me thing. They've got to steal the moon. He steals the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're saying the piss, but I'd watch all that. I'd watch Nicolas Cage in any like National Treasure film. Did you get to see them in the cinema when they came out by any chance?
You know what? I don't think I did. I think I completely missed the boat on the first one because I would have been like a teenager. I think, to be fair, the first 2 of them, I would have been like a teenager when they came out, and I'm like, I don't want to see a family-friendly film about people having a good time. Ugh, that sounds lame. But then I'd seen them on TV like subsequently down the line, or it might have been one of those bootleg DVDs, because I, like many people in this glorious country, had an uncle who knew a man in a factory who could get things. Which was how a lot of my movie viewing was done in my younger years. But for the sake of not being arrested, that's all a joke. Wink, wink.
We'll get into
that. So I'd seen them like much later when they came out, and I was like, you know what? These are great. They're just fun. Sean Bean's always just like a very good bad guy. It's one of the rare occasions where he doesn't die. True. And he seems to be having a good time. He's like, Nicolas Cage, you bastard, where you put that treasure map up your ass? I'm like, yo, Sean, what are you up to?
They could bring him back in the third one.
They couldn't they?
They could.
He's out for revenge.
But he's inexplicably sharp. We don't know why.
I love Sharp as well. Because I remember seeing both of these in the cinema, and they play brilliantly. Like,
did we watch the first one together? Were we at university when the first one came out?
What was the year was the first one?
2004?
Well, we'd have been at university. It says November, so yes, we're probably in the same place at the same time.
I've got a feeling we watched it together.
And it plays gangbusters. People are laughing, having a good time. Everyone leaves with a smile on their face. I mean, films like this are hard to make. I think Jerry Bruckheimer's struggled since, like, The Pirates and The National Treasures. He's been looking for something to fill that void, and he hasn't. And the fact that they haven't even given everyone all the money to make these films at some point is mad to me. It's just, I've never been able to get it. And when I asked a question like on Twitter or whatever, I was like, what's a film that you would most like to see a sequel to? Lots of people come up with National Treasure. Either National Treasure or Serenity or something like that. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like it needs to do a lot of work to make a sequel work, because Cage is going to deliver it in Cage's fashion anyway. You're not going to change that. As long as there's some big set pieces, you know. Would you be happy if they have children and that's how they're into it? How old would they be now? Not old enough.
Well, I kind of thought that's the route they were going to take with the TV series. It was going to turn out there was a child of Gates or something, and that was going to be
Harvey Keitel instead. The character, the FBI guy. They killed him off. Spoiler, kids.
Well, FBI and also Templar, because everyone's a bloody Templar and they're patting each other on the backs with the little secret handshakes and everything. And
Yeah.
one of the episodes, they even went to like Graceland because
they had to steal a record of the war in Graceland. We've all watched it. We'll recall
I've
Graceland.
watched it.
It was okay.
It was all
fine.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, the bad guy, didn't quite work for me. But there's some fun things in there. When do you think would have been the perfect time to release National Treasure 3? I mean, if it wasn't now, and like you said, Nicolas Cage is in his 60s or whatever, and the last one was released in 2007, were you thinking 2010, or would you have waited in 16, 17?
I mean, to be fair, if it was 2010, 2011 probably would have been the time to strike because there's still an appetite. And I think over time it's grown. But like I say, Jerry Bruckheimer has been telling us it's been coming for about 17 years now. And like any day now, any day it's coming. And it's like...
Hey, he did Top Gun Maverick. You never know. You never know.
This is when we find out Top Gun Maverick is actually National Treasure 3 the whole time. I think at this point, like, look, Jerry, like you one of like the most powerful producers that are out there.
Yeah.
It's okay. You've got enough of a solid, unbreakable track record at this point that if you say, look, it ain't happening, I think we've made our peace with it at this point. I think we understand it's probably not going to happen. And by all accounts, I mean, he says that he's looking to start winding down his movie career, but Cage is getting a bit more into TV, like the Spider-Man Noir series has been confirmed now.
That's cool.
So Cage, I mean, to be fair, he's playing an aging superhero, so why not an aging treasure hunter still? So the appetite is
legacy
there.
sequels are all the rage. You know, this is a thing now.
Do you think there is a market? Because we're all, old enough to remember it, but is there a generation now that wouldn't have a clue what National Treasure is? And that's the problem? Or
yeah,
with
possibly.
the budget too big now? With the way that it's not making money, films too much of a risk.
I think the realism is that it's been so long that the whole new generation probably wouldn't have that much of an interest in it, and you're kind of banking on the marketability of Cage to be selling the franchise still. You'd have to have a big budget, and then I fear it would go the way like it would be so heavily promoted by Disney and all the press junkets would happen. And obviously I wouldn't get invited to any of them.
Yeah, tell us about it.
And then they'd push it and they'd push it and they'd push it for like a summer blockbuster, and then it just wouldn't make the money back. And then they'd pull the plug and it would go to streaming like a month later. I think like the Fall Guy being like a recent example of like just not giving it time to sort of make that money back. It's like the optimist in me says like, no, National Treasure can save all of us. Just give it the chance. Let them steal our hearts. That's what we want. But like the pessimist is like, we know what would happen.
Yeah.
The box office would tell a horrible story. Yeah.
Because it's going to be $150 million movie, right, to make. And those sort of movies just aren't making their money back. They're just not.
It's a risk. It's a big risk, especially for Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd have to have Mickey Mouse would have to be part of it. Whatever characters that aren't public domain anymore.
The mouse always wins.
Those films just don't exist. The Indiana Jones, the Mummies, the National Treasures, the pirate films at the moment. They're just not. They're not there.
Oh, they sort of tried to do it with
family
Uncharted,
favorite,
didn't they?
And yes, they went a bit
and that
skew with
didn't
for
really
the
work
Uncharted.
out. Yeah.
I don't know.
Time's moved on, mate. It's moved on. Those were Darryl Edge's Unequal sequels. My favourite thing happened. Someone picked the best sequel last week and someone picked it for worst sequel this week. It's almost like we planned it.
It's genuinely incredible when that happens, because Jay picked it before we organised with Darryl, and then I was kind of organising at the same point, wasn't I? I was like, well, here's Jay's picks.
Yeah. And we didn't move them around in the order to be next to each other. They were genuinely came out like this.
And then generally a couple of hours later, Darryl sent me his picks, and I was like,
it's happening! It's happening!
Okay, we'll get for it. Best of Spider-Man 2. Is that the first time anyone's ever picked Spider-Man 2?
I believe so. We've had Across the Spider-Verse, but I don't think we've had No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home.
And we've had Spider-Man 3 as worst, obviously.
We've had Spider-Man 3 as worst because of course, obviously it is. But yeah, I think this first time we've had Spider-Man 2.
Madness.
Yeah, and it's really good.
Yeah, I love it. I really love Spider-Man 2. I think that's a great sequel. I think it's possibly the best Spider-Man film. I cannot remember what we said in our rankings. It's not the best Spider-Man because we picked Spider-Verse as number one.
Yeah. Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man film.
Spider-Man 2 is the second best Spider-Man film. It's great. And I think it's been a long time coming for someone to pick it. So I'm glad someone did. And Darryl did a great pick. He's a big Spider-Man film. And that's very funny. He's got some very funny stories. But his worst is one of my favourites. Worst, rants. I really enjoy Darryl's humour.
Yes.
He's very sarcastic. He's very dry. He's very funny. He remembers quotes and stuff. And that spew he does of Dune 2 and watching Dune 1 and watching Dune Part 2 with his partner is very funny.
And I've got to be honest, I don't agree, but I sort of was like, you're almost convincing me.
It's always funny when someone picks a bad sequel that me and Rich don't think is a bad sequel because we can't join in here of the slating.
Yeah.
We didn't need to join in.
Darryl did a great job. Darryl did it all for us. We need to put Jay and Darryl in a room together.
No.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, it would. It is. So I think it's a good sequel personally, but I totally get where Darryl is coming from and the music and the sound and the baby bit and the mother-son relationship, and it's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And then of course we had to have a Nicolas Cage Dream sequel.
Oh, and it's the one you've been waiting for, Dave, right?
Been waiting a long time for someone to pick a National Treasure.
You started this whole podcast because you wanted a National Treasure 3.
I'm still amazed we still haven't got a National Treasure 3. And every 6 months there's always we're getting a National Treasure 3. And until I see it, I do not believe it at all. It's fake. It's fake news.
It is. And the TV show on Disney Plus does not count.
No,
it's fine. It's not National Treasure.
I tried to watch it, and I did watch it, and I finished it to see if it would fill that hole of the loneliness where a National Treasure 3 could be, and it doesn't. And it tells me that what I need from a National Treasure 3 is Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
So, that was a good talk. And anyway, Darryl is great. Go check out his podcast of Cage Rage, where he's talks about Nicolas Cage. We just touched on it when we talked about Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider 2 and his thoughts of that. And also check out Getting Defoe You, which he does with Petros, who we've also had on this podcast.
Yes.
Brilliantly. Who also does a Nicolas Cage podcast about the
It all comes round full circle, right?
And we've been on Getting Defoe You, and we watched Speed 2, which is one of it is a great episode of a podcast, so go check that out as well.
So after we'd done Getting Defoe You, they have an editor. And after we'd done that podcast, the editor messaged to say, this podcast is just 4 blokes sitting around laughing at their own jokes. And it's brilliant. So there you go.
It is good. And I'm glad he didn't pick Speed 2 again for us to watch Speed 2 again. Because
I don't really want to watch Speed 2 ever again.
I've watched Speed 2 enough now, I think, for at least a few more years.
Yeah. I don't need to do that again. Although I got a feeling it's going to come up again.
It always will. Go check out Darryl. Go check out his podcast, Cage Rage, Getting Defoe You. Very funny. I like how he particularly picks an actor and just goes at it. And he picks 2 actors that work a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's good. So thank you very much.
Do you know what else is good?
What?
All our back episodes.
Yes.
They're all good, mate. The audio quality might not be so great on the early ones, but the content is outstanding.
And content is king.
Exactly. Go back and have a listen. We have some brilliant guests. Go back and listen to them. They're all amazing. They range from comedians like Sean Walsh to critics to filmmakers to awesome people that you're going to want to hear from. We love them all. All our previous guests are incredible. So go back if you haven't already. Give them a listen. Even if you have, go back and listen again because you might miss something. So give that a go. While you're there, hit the subscribe button, hit the auto download button. We'll drop into your pod player of choice every single week. And if you really like us and you want to hear more from this conversation with Darryl, which I highly recommend you do, because some of the funniest stuff we talk about is in the sequel sessions. So get yourself onto anotherslice.com/unequal sequel, where you can pay just $2.99 a month and you can hear all that extra content that we've recorded. There's loads of extra questions. We do at least an extra 20 minutes, half an hour of talking with Darryl, which is definitely worth your time and money. Go over there. But also, when you do that, you'll get all the back recordings of all the extra bits we've done with people. So not just this season, but last season as well. There's all the extra bits on there. And you'll get Disenfranchised and Box Set Mentality. So it's basically 3 more podcasts for less than £1 each. What more do you want?
Come on, people.
So good. So yeah, go and give that a go. Also, get yourself on social media. We're Unequal Sequel on all of those. Just type it in the search bar. You will find us. If you don't do social media and you want to get in touch, let us know what you thought of Darryl's picks. We are unequalsequel@hotmail.com. We will read out all your comments in the end of month roundup. So please do that and get on there. Also, if you just, really want to help us out and really want to help other people find the podcast, tell your friends about us, but also write us a little review. 5 stars, little tick, little heart, whatever it is on your pod player. We'd really, really enjoy that. Thank you very much. And also, I'll be honest, when we get a written review that someone's typed out for us, both me and Dave do a little dance.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Thank you very much for everyone that subscribes and listens. It's weird that people still listen to us. Thank you very much for Darryl for coming onto the podcast. Very much loved that one. It was a very funny one. Thank you for you guys for listening to it. We go again, episode 7 of season 6 next week. It is another funny one. Get prepared for that.
Episode 8.
It's episode 8 of season 6. Episode 8 of season 6. It's a very funny one. Editing's amazing. And something to look forward to next week. I believe I've got nothing else to say. So it's a goodbye from me. Bye-bye. And a goodbye from him.
Bye!
See you on the next one. Sequels this one. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
We couldn't get through that without at least one little cock up, could we?
Damn it! People love the cock ups.
They do.
People love the cock ups.
We get more comments about how funny the cock ups are than we do about the actual stuff we put a lot of time and effort into.
I'm quite insulted, but I also love a blooper reel. So
that's true. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, and they will continue forever.
Oh yeah, one day this whole podcast will just be me and you making mistakes.
Practically is already. Okay, here we go. I've been told to make a trailer, and they said to make it impactful and memorable. So here we go. My name is Dave Curtis, and I will guarantee you probably haven't heard of me, but I host a podcast called Unequal Sequel, and I love movies. Well, this is a new podcast. If you do something, it's better to do something impossible, because it feels good. Well, I've set myself a mission impossible. You'll see why that's clever in a minute. You may not know it, but Tom Cruise sends loads of people a cake at Christmas. I have set myself a quest to get Tom Cruise to send me that cake. How, you're asking? How, Dave? How is that going to happen? Well, you have to listen to the podcast and find out. That's literally what the podcast is about. It's about Tom Cruise, his career, and me getting the cake from Tom Cruise. Sounds fun, doesn't it? How about you listen along? It's called The Great Tom Cruise Cake Quest. And it will be available wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know about you, but I think I nailed that.